Hello dear Motorsport-Magazin.com friends and Formula One fans. After the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, we have seen a sensational race. These are the days when we love our sport so much. We've seen lead changes on the track, we have seen strategic decisions that had a major impact on the race, and we've seen a winner in Lewis Hamilton, I think, who everyone really wanted in the end. Numbers do not need to be emotional, but they can be. Lewis Hamilton had to wait 945 days for this victory. His last win was just so many days ago. It was Saudi Arabia 2021, and it was his 104th win of his career. The 9th home win at this beautiful track in Silverstone, which is also an absolute record. And yes, those numbers caused Lewis Hamilton to get highly emotional. For the first time, there were tears under his helmet after a victory. You could also hear it on the radio. It was the first time he had ever heard the anthem for King Charles. It had been that long since his last victory, and he himself admitted, yes, it feels completely different. He has never cried at the victory, and these emotions have just built up after so many days. He also admitted that he doubted at times that it would ever happen again. Of course, it's all the better now. You could just see it in his face. He enjoyed it in a completely different way than usual. Maybe it was his last victory. Of course, you never know. But then there's still a long way to go. He still has a career with Ferrari ahead of him. And of course the questions arose accordingly. Is this a bittersweet victory, leaving Mercedes like this? He says no, quite the opposite. It would have been bittersweet if he had left Mercedes on a low. He wants to end what he and Mercedes have achieved together on a high. And that's why it's all the better for him that things are finally going well. But let's take a closer look at this sensational race. I have to say, I sat there for the 52 laps and almost chewing my fingernails because it was simply really exciting all the time. At the start, Russell drove away at the front. Lewis Hamilton was chasing him, but he never let up. It was relatively close between the two of them the whole time, and then it started to rain a bit. On lap 18 it was time. Hamilton passed Russell and took the lead. A great duel between the two Silver Arrow drivers. The two of them even went off the track in parallel in turn 1 and then had to fend off the McLaren, especially Lando Norris. He then took the lead on lap 20. And yes, then the track dried out a bit, and then it got a bit wet again. So these are just the little games that we love about Formula One, that we love here at Silverstone, and that Lewis Hamilton in particular loves. Then it was all about keeping the car on the track and making the right strategic decisions, and Lewis Hamilton definitely made them. He then switched to the intermediate tires on lap 27. Perhaps a lap before that would have been a bit better. Max Verstappen, who was actually already out of the race in the meantime because the performance of his Red Bull was not good at all, managed that really well. Then, thanks to the correctly timed stop, he was back in the race to some extent, but it was definitely not a mistake for Hamilton and Norris to come in on lap 27. Then there was the rain phase, which didn't last very long. Then it was all about finding the right switch back to the dry tires. And Lewis Hamilton timed it perfectly. He was ready on lap 38. And then he switched to the soft tires for the final stint, and that was a very courageous decision. In hindsight, Toto Wolff said that was actually the wrong decision. That was the worst tire available at the time. We would have preferred to use the medium tires, but they no longer had them because they took them at the start stint. And then they said, okay, then we'll take the soft tires. We'll get them up to temperature well. Lewis Hamilton also did a sensational job and carried the tires to the finish, but that's why it was particularly exciting at the end, because Max Verstappen switched to the hard tires at the end. And he was able to accelerate the whole time, driving one fast lap after the other, and in the end it was very, very close between Hamilton and Verstappen. A super exciting finish, super exciting battles on the track. Yes, and with the winner Lewis Hamilton at the end. But on the other hand, of course, McLaren could or should have won this race. Oscar Piastri, they took him out of the race a bit by sending him onto intermediates one lap too late, not until lap 28. They wanted to avoid the double stack, so they didn't want Piastri to have to queue behind Norris at the pit stop. Piastri was the faster of the two McLaren drivers shortly before the stop and put pressure on Norris. Yes, and that was his undoing in the end. He was one lap too late and lost a lot of time. Lando Norris? He could actually have won. He was in the lead. But they waited a lap too long to put him back on slicks. Then, additionally, the pit stop went a bit wrong because he did not quite hit the position. As a result, he lost the lead to Lewis Hamilton by 4.5 seconds. Nevertheless, you would still have had the chance to win the race. if they had probably put him on the right tires, but McLaren were a little misguided. McLaren was the only top team that had an additional set of tires, an additional set of mediums, and the medium would actually have been the best tire. But you could see from the competition, yes, soft tires, so we'll risk it too. Then we did that and couldn't do anything against Lewis Hamilton. Instead, we had to admit defeat to Max Verstappen in the end. Lando Norris was understandably in a pretty bad mood as a result. After giving away another victory, well, who messed it up? The driver or the team? That is the big question at McLaren. On the team side, they take it all on themselves. Andrea Stella, the team principal, has said, no, these were all our mistakes. We should have informed the drivers better. We made the decision as to when the drivers would arrive and so on. That's why. No trouble for the drivers, but the team takes the blame. But of course it's already piling up, and this missed home win was of course particularly painful for Lando Norris. Incidentally, it was also a missed home win for George Russell, the pole setter. We haven't even covered him yet. He was first overtaken by Lewis Hamilton and then later unfortunately had to retire from the race. Technical defect, his engine overheated, there was a problem with the water system. Therefore rather out of the race. It probably wouldn't have been enough for victory anyway because he had already lost the position to Lewis Hamilton on the track. Incidentally, he had not yet suffered any loss of power at that point. So Hamilton didn't win the race against his teammate by luck, but decided it on the track. As you can see, this Formula 1 is really fun, and today was the pinnacle of this season. McLaren was able to win. Red Bull narrowly missed out. Mercedes won. Well, Ferrari wasn't on top of their game again today, but overall you can see 3 teams, 3.5, sometimes 4, are really in the draw, and that's exactly what our current print edition is all about. But the Formula 1 superpowers are back. Issue number 97 on abo.motorsport-magazin.com, and also in this print edition are the top 5 most emotional home victories. And to celebrate, I'd say we'll put it on the website for you for free so you can get a little taste of it. Taste. Home victories really are always something very special, as we saw today. We've touched on Ferrari very briefly now. Yes, that was damage limitation at best. Carlos Sainz in 5th position and fastest lap because he was able to stop again and had nothing to lose. Yes, somehow, okay, but nothing worked for Charles Leclerc, only 14th position for him. They gambled, they put on the intermediate tires when the first drops came. Same game with Perez, by the way. The poker didn't work out. When it really started to rain, the tires were already destroyed and you had to come in again. But you only took the risk anyway because there was really nothing to lose, maybe a 6th or 7th position, but that's not really the point for Ferrari. And that's why they said, okay, we'll take the risk. In the end, of course, you looked like the biggest fool, but you're always smarter with hindsight. For Charles Leclerc, this was the 4th disastrous weekend in a row after his home win in Monaco. So it's really bitter. One hopes that things will go better again in Budapest. The track characteristics should be suitable there. They also want to start again with the update, with the latest underbody specification. There are not so many high-speed corners there. From 250, the porpoising comes, the bouncing comes, and at Silverstone, of course, this is particularly bad with all those high-speed corners. That's why we expected it to be a difficult weekend, but we probably didn't think it would be quite that bad. On the other hand, Nico Hülkenberg was of course the positive surprise, the sensation, finishing in 6th position for the 2nd time in a row. Yes, there was no way around the Ferrari in the race trim. The Ferrari was significantly faster. Nico Hülkenberg said as much after qualifying. But nevertheless, maximum result. He made all the decisions that had to be made absolutely right. Changed to the intermediates together with Verstappen, then went back on the slicks at exactly the right moment. Perfect decisions on this side. This also made up for the somewhat mediocre start. There was a squeeze, 3 positions lost. That's clear. There was no way around a Ferrari in the end. In terms of performance, Russell still gained the position due to the retirement. It almost looked bad against Lance Stroll at the end because Hülkenberg had also opted for the soft tires. He was really under pressure but still managed to cross the line with a lead of less than a second, and so he clinched his 2nd 6th place in a row. And in the Drivers' World Championship, he is now just 1 point behind Lance Stroll, so a really great season from Nico Hülkenberg. Great race here at Silverstone. I can't wait to see what happens next. And now I'm looking forward to your questions to our expert Christian Danner for the AVD Motorsport Magazine, #AskAVD, and now we've eaten so much at this race. But it's still time for the analysis with our expert.